Everybody comes in as an attendee. The person has to promote you to a panelist.
Why?
Now, I don't know why we're receiving the message to say that we want to be a panelist, but they do have to always promote us to be panelists.
We never had this before. I was able to log in right from the email.
Well, you logged in and the person saw you immediately and put you as a panelist.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not happening anymore. It's not happening.
Okay, I hear you.
15 minutes.
Well, I couldn't get in either. I don't know what happened here. It was saying it was a GRF meeting.
Yeah, well, I'm saying it needs to be looked into, really.
And we're missing a lot of people. I think there was a message that went out which had the wrong number on it. Is that possible?
Yeah, everything is possible now.
Yeah, I'm just saying it needs to be looked into, really.
Yeah, Sue, I'm also looking at the attendee list at the moment. I see Carl's out there. There's a number of other people. So it's a matter of time until they get added in.
Okay, so we're just trying to get them added. Okay, because I saw Elsie was coming in. And, yeah, it's not it's a change.
It's a problem, not a change. It's a problem.
Yes, thank you. It's a problem.
But for the record, I had to join as a panelist also. I was out until I just had to click a thing to say join as panelist. So
3, 4. Okay. We're missing Diane and Netta. Is there any? We've got 6 people. Well, before we start voting, I will make sure that they get on. I'll give them a call while we go through the budget here. So let's.
Sue, I'm on. I'm on,
okay.
Sue.
Thank you, Diane. I'm missing just Netta then, right? So I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, just Netta.
What is Azar?
Azar's in Iran. I don't know if she's going to join us or not. Okay, I'm going to call to order. We have a quorum. The statement of purpose for this meeting is a special meeting of the United Board of Directors, a California nonprofit mutual benefit corp. It's Thursday, August 12th at 2021, 1:30, and it is a virtual meeting only because of COVID. We are going to review the proposed 2022 business plan. We've also added one more thing onto the agenda, if you okay it, that we'd like to discuss a little bit about the NCB problem. And that would be, Jeff, do you want to do it first or last?
I recommend, Sue, that you do that afterwards, and it'd be a closed session.
Okay, so we will do it at the end of this. We will make this a closed session at the end.
Do we have any material for that to read before we?
No, there is no material for that. It will be only a informational situation. Okay.
Okay.
Can you tell us briefly what the topic is?
NCB.
NCB. Okay.
And Sue, if there is no material, we think we should postpone this.
We need to inform you. It is informational. We need to inform you. If you don't want to be informed, you don't have to come to the meeting. But it is informational, and we will be informing you. Okay.
And it will be a closed session.
It will be a closed session. Okay. I've got 2 hands up. Manuel, is there any reason your hand's up? Diane, what is your hand up for?
Well, I just thought it was a helpful email from Elsie about the NCB. I mean, I thought it was very informative. Thanks.
Okay, we will be going over that immediately after the finance meeting. Okay, so So it'll be a separate meeting. We will have a separate agenda, and that we don't have to take care of it here. I acknowledge the media. We are on television for this. Are we on Granicus or television?
Hi, Sue. It's Chris in the boardroom. We're on both. We're broadcasting via Village Television and we're streaming via Granicus.
Okay, thank you for the information. So can I have an approval of this agenda, please? A motion to approve this agenda.
I so move.
There a second? Cash has seconded. We will move on. Is there anything that anybody wants to add or change to the agenda? If there's nothing, we're moving on. I have no remarks except that this is our last view of this budget. We need to vote on it today. We will be going into September with this budget, what we come out with today. Okay, so is there any, Chris, is there anybody from the open forum? Any letters?
So I had my arm up.
I'm sorry, we're going down the agenda.
I have to correct your last statement. This is not the vote. There's another vote in September.
Yeah, this is our last.
Today we vote. We did not vote today on that.
Okay. This is our last chance to change it. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Simply.
Okay. Is there any letters or phone calls from the open forum?
Hi, Sue. This is Chris. As far as I can tell, there is none. No one has their hand raised. There is nothing in the chat. So my answer is no at this point in time. But I'll definitely let the board know if there's any anything that comes up.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chris. We have no unfinished business, so I turn it over to Jose for the review of the proposed budget plan, version 3.
Perfect. Thank you very much, President Margolis, and I'll be talking about the United Preliminary 2022 Business Plan, version 3. Just a minute earlier, this is almost a culmination of a very lengthy process. We began this process back in March, where we talked about the different departments and brought each of the department heads on to explain what the different service levels are. We went line by line over in landscape and maintenance as far as what their service levels are, and the board took a close look at those and made some comments and made some recommendations. We had a couple of different reviews at the budget in its entirety, the most recent of which was July 15th. And today, the purpose of the meeting is, of course, to get any more input that you have for us, as well as to inform all of the constituents via television as far as what's inside the business plan and what's going on. Ultimately, we'll take any changes or recommendations from today and incorporate them into resolutions, and we'll send those resolutions over to you so you can review them for your September 14th meeting, at which point we'll have an established budget for 2021. Next slide, please. So to that end, I wanted to show you a little bit of the basic assessment history here for the last several years. For 2022, the United portion of the assessment is set to go to $406.78, which is an increase of $10.40 per man per month, or 2.6%. Some of the major contributions there, or some of the major contributors, I should say, is employee compensation, which went up $740,000 or $9.76. And that has to do with some added positions, which we'll talk about here in just a minute. Additionally, utilities increased by $353,000 or $4.66. And all of that was offset by a decrease in the contribution to the contingency fund. But we'll go over each of those items here. I just wanted to give you a general overview. The United portion is a $10.40 increase. Next slide, please. In addition to that, United also has to participate in the GRF portion. They reviewed their budget on Monday, and ultimately they agreed to a $12.21 increase. So the grand total for United, the basic assessment is proposed to be $624.59, or a total increase of $22.61, which is 3.8%. Next slide, please. So I wanted to start with a general overview as far as the staffing is concerned. This is the staffing figure for the entire community. So you can see there that about 15 years ago or so, we were at 772. Today, or I should say proposed for 2022, you'll be at 734, and that's full-time equivalents or FTE. That is a 6.33 FTE increase from 2021 to 2022, and we'll talk about those here on the next slide. So by department, I want to go over what's going on as far as staffing is concerned. In the Office of the CEO, you can see here, you have two columns. You have the 2021 budget and the 2022 budget, as well as a comparison between the two. And in the Office of the CEO, you see an increase of 1.44 FTE. And what we did here is we added one FTE to staff a new senior management analyst position. And the purpose of that is to provide some audit and analytical capabilities to the Office of the CEO. Additionally, we took a part-time position that was there and we transitioned it into a community services supervisor. And the intent there is to focus on the priorities of the department, enhancing resale process and helping make information more readily available to residents. Media and communications decreased by 1.68 FTE, and that's due to the removal of an unstaffed cable technician. Information services increased 1 FTE, and that's due to the addition of a customer service manager to resident services. And the idea there is to have some better day-to-day interactions as residents come in. They'll be able to have a supervisor there to help with those things. General services added 2 positions. They added 2 paving trade aides to the streets and sidewalks, so that's going to help out with that. And in financial services, you see here on your screen that there is no net change. I do want to make you aware, we are actually moving our risk manager from the financial services department over to human resources. The offset there is that we do have the addition of an executive assistant in financial services, and that's in an effort to help free up analyst time to perform more ad hoc analyses. So even though you see a 0 increase there, again, that increase you'll see over in human resources. Security services, on the other hand, decreased. They decreased by a total of 1.13 FTE, and that had to do with some efficiencies gained for inspections. And on the next slide here, you'll see landscape. Landscape increased 1 FTE, and that was due to the addition of a spray tech to help with pest control. Recreation services, although it doesn't impact United directly, just to give you an idea, for recreation services, we added 2.5 staff years, and that had to do with 2021 only had 10 months worth of the clubhouses being open, and in 2022 we expect full opening. So the increase you see here is just to reestablish those staffing levels. Human resources, this is the 1 FTE that I just talked about by bringing over the risk manager. And in maintenance and construction, and I do want to spend a minute on this one, I'll have you know that overall maintenance and construction, there was no change in FTE. In fact, from a dollars and cents perspective for United had a slight decrease here for maintenance and construction. However, there was a complete rearranging and reorganization of the department. For example, we've added a deputy director, we've added some operations specialists to help with maintenance services and to help with damage restoration. We've also added an inspector. And all of that was offset by the reduction of the paint crew. And that's because United went from a 10-year paint cycle to a 15-year paint cycle. So again, there's overall a slight dollar decrease, but the big news here is a lot of the things that were removed were from the reserve. And all those things that were added to the operating. And so you'll see a direct increase there in your operating contribution there. I did want to make you aware overall, you did decrease slightly. On the next slide here, we have, I like to start by mentioning what changes occurred from version 2 to version 3. And you can see on your screen here, in the first column is version 2, the middle column is version 3. The big change is going to be in expenses. Expenses increased by 96 cents per manor per month, and that's due to the increase in hazard and liability insurance. Some of the rates were updated. Additionally, we had an update for water rates. Water rates became effective July 1st, and we got them into our model there, and rates increased slightly. not rates, but total budget increase for water. So ultimately, from version to version, there was a 96-cent increase. Additionally, for reserve fund, during your July 15th meeting, the board directed staff to revert back to the 2021 reserve fund contributions. So that ended up being a decrease of $15. So version to version, the total decrease here was $14.04 for the United portion. Additionally, GRF had a reduction of 29 cents, and that had to do with some increased pro shop sales, and they were also impacted by the insurance update. So altogether, version to version, there was a decrease of $14.33. On the next slide, please. Just want to talk about overall. The overall here for United, you can see on your screen here. We'll start, and we'll go through each of these sections individually. But you can see your assessment revenue here. You had more revenue, which decreased your assessment by 61 cents compared to last year. Total expense increased by $16.01, which we talked about. And the other change is the contingency fund, and that decreased by $5. I see that there were some questions here. Sue, did you want to go through each of these and then pause at the end of each of these particular categories and have questions then, or how would you like to work it? Sorry, you're muted, Sue.
I had a question on slide 8.
Okay, I'm not, okay, would you put them in the chat box, please? Go ahead and ask your question.
Sue, I've been keeping track of who has had their hands raised. Do you want me to just call them out so that way we can?
Okay, call them in the order, because I didn't see those 3 hands go up.
That's okay. I'll take care of it. So first we have Manny, then we have Cash, and then we have Riza. So go ahead, Manny.
Manuel, you're called on.
And you are muted, man.
He's still muted.
Okay, I got a question on slide 8 first. It says reserve funds there, $15 decrease, and it's kind of misleading because it looks like you're reducing the reserve fund assessment by $15, and that's only because you'd already raised it in your proposed. So I just want to point that out. So don't get fooled by this $14 decrease. So go to slide 9, and that was more clearly a comparison between 2022 and 2021. And that's what I'm talking about right there. Sure. You compare the two, okay? Sure. And the basic assessment is going up by $22.61. And that's primarily in increases in expenses. There was virtually little change between version 1, 2, and 3 in overall expenses. The overall expenses are going up by $1.6 million. And so very little has been done about trying to look at areas where, you know, those could be reduced. And there are areas where I believe they could be reduced. Now, I've submitted my analysis. They responded to it. But it's easier to put your hand out and ask for more money than it is to go in and do the hard job of looking at where they can become more efficient and produce better results at a lower cost. So those are the points I want to make on both those screens. 261 is still an undesirable increase, and we want that improved. Here.
I think you're speaking for yourself, please. You want it improved. Okay, next speaker, please. Riza?
Cash and then Riza.
Oh, Cash? Okay, go ahead, Cash. Would you go back to slide 8?
Slide 8, please.
There you go.
Okay, my question. Yeah, you're showing changes between plan version 2 and plan version 3. It should actually be 2021 versus 2022?
So I show them both. This is the just version comparison from version 2 to version 3. And then on slide 9, you'll see what you're asking about 2021 to 2022.
Let me see slide 9 again, please. Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Riza.
Okay, Reza, please.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
In one slide, it says the staffing has decreased. On the other one, it says the assessment has increased. My question is, where is this extra assessment going to?
Well, we've been going over it, that the union requires us to pay more, and there are a number of things. We've moved people that were...
In addition to unions, etc., within the village, how much I've been asking to see how much VMS managers get and how much the workers get. And I've never got any response to that. I believe a lot of these increases is going to VMS directors and managers. I want to stop that.
We'll be talking about that in here in just a couple of slides, so we'll get into as far as the dollars and cents are concerned for United. And I'll give you some figures here when we get to those slides. It's not going to be broken up between managers and employees, but it'll give you a total idea of where the increases are.
Okay, Andre?
Thanks, Chair. I thought during the last month meeting, we made a decision that we asked VMS not to increase assessment per man and per month. But seems like you increased the $22, still holding on the $22. Is there any reason that you do it that way, not following board's request?
The only request that came out of the version 2 meeting was to keep the reserves fund contribution steady at $142.02. So that's the line that didn't increase. That was the only direction that staff was given from the last meeting.
So you're not making any improvement on the operation side.
The operations, yes, we're going to be going over each of those by account, but yes, those are the numbers that are proposed that you see on your screen.
Okay, we'll look at the operation side and decide, how should we take care of those numbers. Thank you very much.
All right, well, with that, then we'll continue on here to slide 10. And we're going to take this slide here that you see.
Jose, there's still two more people that have questions. We have one from Dick Rader in the audience, and then we have Manny. So we'll go with Manny first since he's on the board, then we'll go with Dick, and then I'll keep everyone updated. So go ahead, Manny.
Thank you, Christopher. On the GRF assessment, I just wanted to clarify that it originally started at $25, and I attended every one of the GRF meetings. And I pointed out to them that they hadn't considered applying a credit for the operating savings from the prior year. And they accepted that. They went through it and they did apply that. The problem is that they reduced the amount that could be applied by some legal expense, and we covered that in the last United session. And that is still, in my opinion, up in the air, because it is clear that that shouldn't be applied as far as a reduction of the credit. It has nothing to do with it. Also pointed out to the United directors something related to that going back to the very beginning of the issue. And that is that GRF is not the one that's responsible for that expense. Somebody else, okay? And it should not impact our budget. And by GRF not reducing the assessment by that amount, it's affecting the monthly by close to $5 per unit per month. And so again, that's not a closed issue, in my opinion. And our attorney agreed with me, and we're going to be pursuing that. So again, as far as I'm concerned, GRF should not be a closed book. So that's to clarify where we are with GRF, in my opinion. Thank you.
Go ahead, Dick.
Sorry, my response to that is that we talked about things in GRF, but I do want to point out that every single dollar that was resulting from an operating surplus was returned to GRF in the form of a contribution to the contingency fund.
Just a second. The amount that was applied to the budget was reduced by $600,000, even though $1.5 million went to the contingency reserve. Only part of that was used in reducing the assessment amount. Okay.
Correct. The rest
you know that, Jose. You know that, Jose. So confirm that, please.
That's one. Well, it was $1.4 million, but yes, it all went into the contingency fund, and then there are some planned expenditures from the contingency fund, including approximately $600,000 for some legal fees.
Yeah, Manny, I can confirm that dollar amount. The whole 1.4 was transferred to the
yes,
contingency
I understand
fund.
that. But in arriving at the assessment, we didn't get credit for the full amount. Okay?
That's correct. And the reason being
that's correct. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say. That's correct. That's about a $5 increase in the assessment because you didn't credit it all back.
Correct. Because by the end of the year, there will only be the 1.4 net of the legal fees, right? So we can't commit to
that's right.
contributing
I'm saying we should have gotten credit for the full amount in GRF.
Okay.
And that issue is not closed yet. Thank you.
Go ahead, Dick.
I want to thank Manny for his comments. However, I wish to point out and emphasize this is a united budget meeting. And I hope that people will stop referring to the assessment going up $22.61. Our HOA fee, the united fee, is only right now going up $10.40. We don't control the GRF assessment, which is $12.21. So the bottom line point is you should be discussing the $10.40. And I wish to point out, and I know it's been pointed out before, but there may be other people listening. In the past 2 years, the HOA fee for United remained unchanged from 1 year to the next. We're now going into the third year, and we hear that we want to have it unchanged again. How is it possible that you can have increases every year in wages, in medical expenses, in increased costs everywhere without going into detail, and yet we remain steady for 2 years, and now we're going to third, and we want to have it steady? Something has to give. You can't squeeze the lemon for juice all the time. Eventually you squeeze it and you get nothing. You're going to have to cut something if you want to keep it the same. I just think it's inappropriate to do that because expenses are going to increase from now until doomsday. And so you have to keep expenses going along. It should be each year, it should go up somewhat instead of staying steady for 2 years and then suddenly have a jump. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a couple hands raised in from the panelists. The order that I have is Andre, then Riza, then Manny. So go ahead, Andre.
Oh, I thought Manny was ahead of me.
Sorry, go ahead, Andre. I'll wait. Go ahead.
Okay. In response to Dick, I'm not sure, do you know that, do you go to Costco's and do you eat their hot dog? The price has remained the same for so many years. And they figured out a way to change it, to change their operations. If you look at their operations, they pretty much try to hold the price low and stay the same. How can they do that? I'm sure that there's a way to do it, and we are depending on the professionals to make it happen. All right. And as we go along, the department headcount and the expense increase, we can look at it and say, why do we have all these expenses and we have no savings? That is my biggest concern, and we will talk about that. Okay, thank you very much, and I hope you understand. If you don't know how to make improvement, you will never know how to cut expense. Thank you.
Go ahead, Riza.
Can I speak now?
Of course, go ahead.
Yes, please.
In response to Dick Rader, a comment, in addition to what Andre said, I like to remind him that he's not anymore a VMS employee. He's been trying to defend VMS, but the thing is, the question of efficiency. We're talking that VMS is not efficient, and that's why the prices are going up. And he misses the point. Thank you. That's all my comment.
Go ahead, Manny, and then we go Dick Rader, and then Carl.
Thank you, Chris. In response to Dick Rader's comment, we've gone through 18 months of a miserable situation here in the village. Yeah, granted it was due to COVID-19, but in the meantime, a lot of our services weren't provided. Yeah, the basics was, they had to do landscaping. They had to provide utilities. They had to come out and repair our plumbing. But as far as manor alterations, as far as escrow closings, our amenities, we've been without them for 18 months, still not back to normal. Clubhouse 3 is still closed. Swimming pool 1 is still waiting for the boiler. You name the clubs are open. Clubhouse 6, I believe, is closed. And whatever is available is very limited. Table tennis is only available during the week to 4:30, not available on the weekend when it gets the highest use. We still have metal fencing around Clubhouse 1, which makes it very difficult down there, depending on where you want to go in that complex over there. So this has led to some substantial savings in GRF and United. The past 2 years, there weren't increases until 2021, where there weren't any savings for that. There was an attempt that members were sick and tired of all these increases because VMS just had their hand out. So that's my response to Dick. Okay, we got a different situation this year. And believe me, there's going to be cost savings again this year. We're into August, and we're still not back at normal. So we're doing with our money. I hope they're holding on to it. We'll see. We'll find out. Thank you.
Go ahead, Dick.
Boy, do I have to defend myself? I thought I was just being a rational individual pointing out if you're a business person, you can understand what I said. Now, with regard to what Reza said, he said I was a VMS employee. Gee, I didn't know that. I didn't get any money. I was on the board, and I was not defending the board, Reza. I was pointing out just what common sense predicts. If you go outside this village, you will see everything has gone up. How come you don't go to the grocery store and complain? Because, why? Because you think you have, everybody thinks they have the opportunity to complain here. This is not a matter of complaint. It's a matter of dollars and cents, what we can afford. And if you attend the meetings, every single one that I go to, I hear, including today, efficiencies. Today, I brought up something, and I won't go into detail, but Kurt said, Dick, I'm way ahead of you, and it's going to increase productivity. You could call and ask me what it was. I thought it was a brilliant idea. He got ahead of me, and he's doing it. It's going to save money and increase productivity. The fact of the matter is that I don't think a lot of people have heard from department heads exactly where they're saving money and what they're doing. That's what the problem is here. Bottom line, I'm not trying to defend VMS. I am trying to look at this from a rational standpoint and say, you got $10 and $10 and change, and that's what you should be discussing. Can you cut it? And what are you going to lose if you cut it? That's it. It's simple. And just to make broad stroke statements, oh, we could be more efficient, this and that. That's easy to say. Why don't you tell somebody what you want to cut and then ask Jeff and the staff to tell you what the consequences would be? That's how you go about determining what should be cut. Don't just come up with broad statements. Point out what you want to cut and then ask what the consequences are, because there will be consequences, probably service cuts. Thank you.
Let's go Carl, and then Sue, you have your hand raised, but you can talk anytime.
I'll stay in line.
I would just like to mention that there's a number of false narratives being presented in this particular meeting so far, and many of them are coming from people, directors. First off, Costco is a profit center. Costco has lost leaders. Costco is going to basically charge you $1.50 for your hot dog from now until November, because then they can have you come in and buy toilet paper. Or they can reduce the amount of money that the CEO gets, okay? We're not a profit center. Whatever comes in goes out. We do not have profits, and we don't have bonuses, and we don't have any of that stuff, okay? So at this particular point in time, to compare Costco, to compare IBM, to compare AT&T or what have you, to this place is a false narrative. The second thing is a false narrative to specifically keep on saying that we have closed down all of these places for whatever it's been. However, at the GRF meetings that I've gone to, and I've gone to all of them also, they've specifically said that they've given back that money, and they've specifically got everything on a spreadsheet. Numbers are there, not subjective issues, but numbers. Numbers of millions of dollars, numbers of thousands of dollars, numbers of whatever, okay? And if you look at those numbers and you add them up and subtract them or what have you, you come out with the numbers that VMS has come up with. Thirdly, we have, whether or not we're efficient or not, we have asked VMS within the last year or two to increase their staff, to do this more, to do that more. We're not doing this good enough. They've specifically asked, they've added people to their staff. In addition to that, California this year has increased the minimum wage to $15, plus there's also a 2.5% increase in the salaries and the wages of many people, because that's in the contracts. Plus, there's health benefit increases of 4%. So to specifically say that they are not doing their job is disingenuous, a false narrative, and you're telling the people at home that these people don't know what they're doing. And that, to me, is BS. So under the circumstances right now, do not keep on continuing to provide a false narrative, because we are not IBM, we're not Costco. We are a homeowners association. Thank you.
Go ahead, Sue.
And I'd like to point out that Costco kept their hot dog by giving you a substandard kind that they used to have, a much better, more costly hot dog. So they were able to take it and give you a substandard hot dog. You want substandard, we can go ahead and get substandard. We've been trying to get things better, and people are working very hard. And all the negativity you put out really affects everybody who works here. Morale is the most important thing to get quality job done. A high morale group will get a quality job done. And if you continue to spew that they aren't doing a better job and that they aren't cost effective and they aren't this and they aren't that, you will never see a better job. You will be losing your best workers because they can get a better job right now. So I think you guys need to think about how you're going to keep your workers here and give them we aren't even giving them a cost of living raise. We are giving them even a substandard raise. So think about that. Thank you.
Let's go Riza, Andre, and then Dick Rader, and then I hate to be pushy, but this is slide 8 of 36. So if we could focus our final
This
comments
is
right here, that'd be perfect. Go ahead, Riza.
This is Reza. Regarding Dick's comment, throughout the period that he was representing United in BMS, he always acted as BMS employee. That's why I mentioned to Carl to point out. Whether he believed in it or not, I don't know. Regarding Carl's point on something he mentioned about false narrative, wrong narrative. It is not wrong narrative. Carl, you don't seem to understand the point, which you misunderstand all the time.
Okay, we're not discussing people. Let's move on. If you want to argue about what people say, let's just move on. I think we need to move on. Andre, quickly.
They accuse me. They accuse me. I have to respond to what they.
No, you do not have to give personal names. Thank you.
But
Andre.
They use my name.
You used my name.
His name. You started it. We're not name calling. I'm done with name calling. Let's move on. Let's move on. Everybody, we're moving on. Thank you.
Let me share with you some kind of thought. There's a big misunderstanding of what we are talking about. We are not talking about cut. We are talking about change. Change processes will make. Please, Dick. We are talking about change processes. For example, we need to have a quality check, so there will be no minimum customer work request cost. That will reduce a lot of extra effort. These days, if we don't have the quality, if we're still counting on the quantity, time is up. Move on to next cul-de-sac. We will have all kinds of costs.
Okay, we're done. We're done discussing this. Let's move on. It's not going to affect the budget.
We change processes.
Please mute everybody. Thank you. Let's go on, Jose.
All right. Well, I've been directed to move on, so we'll go ahead and move on to slide number 10, please. We're going to take each of these lines and go at them one at a time. We'll start with revenue. And as you can see here, revenue from year over year is going to actually decrease the assessment by 61 cents. We can have the next slide here. Altogether, just so you know, revenue increases by $47,000 or 61 cents per man per month. So I wanted to have a pie chart here so you can take a look at where your revenue is and where it's coming from. So as you can see from your pie chart here, fees and charges for services to residents accounts for your biggest portion, or 41%, or $613,000 of this. The laundry accounts for 18%, or $260,000. Resale processing fee accounts for 10%, or $142,000. Lease processing fee, $125,000, or 8%. Under that miscellaneous fee, that's $98,000, and I want to give you an idea of what's in there. Additional occupant fees are in there, as well as variance processing fees, some electric vehicle plug-in fees, and those types of fees. Collection and administrative fee is the next category at 5%, or $80,000, as well as golf cart electric fee of $60,000. Resident violations accounts for $58,000, and late fees accounts for $50,000. So let's go over each of those on the next slide here. And on these next several slides, you'll be able to take a look and see that we've included 3 years worth of actuals. And just so you know, all numbers are in thousands. We've also included the last year's budget as well as the proposed 2022 budget, so you can see a comparison there on the far right side. So these are all of the items in revenue, and let's just go through them. Merchandise sales, there was no change. Fees and charges, so this is your chargeable services, and I do want to point out there are two pretty big changes here for chargeable services. First, you're losing about $150,000 in revenue, and that has to do with less damage restoration coming in, and that's just based off of the actuals. You've been trending downward there from the damage restoration perspective. However, there is a pretty big offset here in an additional $130,000 in permit fees. And getting back to an earlier comment about efficiencies, we've been asked to increase staffing to take a look at, specifically in manor alterations, to process more permit requests. And so here you're going to see the offset of that. You're going to see additional revenue coming in from those permit fees being processed. The next line, laundry. Laundry revenue is projected to go down $10,000, and that's based off of experience. Sorry, Chris, we lost one slide, please. There you go. You can see the recent experiences that we're not going to be quite up to that $270,000 mark, which we assumed in 2021. Instead, we're going to be about $260,000. So that's a $10,000 to the negative as far as your assessment is concerned. And under that miscellaneous category, there was a total decrease. I apologize. There's more revenue coming in planned for miscellaneous, so that will decrease your assessment by $72,000, and that comes from $33,000 in collection administrative fees and resale processing fees. Again, that has to do with the higher number of homes being sold, and we expect that trend to continue in 2022. And also, we anticipate $28,000 in extra resident violation fees, and that has to do with more manor alterations and increased staff to be able to process those. So again, all in all, the revenue portion, we're anticipating $46,000 more than we did in 2021, and that decreased the assessment by that same amount.
I have a question, point of order. Okay. What you had is not in my handout. My handout is talk about the business plan by departments and the head count and the increase and decrease. So I don't have any information. I'm not prepared to talk about that part. I was preparing to talk about the head counts. That's the information I received. I don't know.
The portion that we're reviewing comes from page 8 of 27 on your business plan. And currently we're reviewing the revenue portion.
Yeah, I don't have the revenue portion. I only have the headcount, full-time equivalent for all corporations, headcounts. I don't have the revenue, the revenue expense side.
Again, that was page 8 of the agenda that was distributed to both electronically and physically, I believe.
8?
Agenda item 9A, page 8 of 27.
Please look at your packet. Let's move on.
All right.
We can look at it on the screen.
Yeah, but I need time to absorb those numbers. Just not going through that.
You will have until next month to absorb. Let's move on.
Well, wait a minute. We need to reabsorb and ask question here. Can we start over?
We're not going to start over. Because please look at your packet. It's in my packet. It's in everybody else's packet. Please.
Not in this format.
Andre, please mute Andre. Let's move on.
All right. So that concludes the revenue portion. We'll move on to expense, unless you want to take questions about revenue, or do you want to wait until after expense? I think that's where the most questions
are there any questions on revenue other than that you don't have it in your packet? Okay, let's go ahead on to expense, please.
I want to talk about headcounts, because that's the information I have.
We will get to that when we get to it. Thank you.
So we will get it today?
Yes.
Okay.
Great. Actually, it's going to be the majority of the expense that we're going to talk about in here now. Actually, is going to be headcount. But let me give you the overall here. Overall, as you can see on your screen, total expense increases by about $1.2 million, or $16.01 per manor per month. On the next slide here, you'll see that as far as expenses are concerned, the vast majority of your expenses, again, your service organization, so it comes from employee compensation and related. And we'll get there in just a second, but we'll talk about that at length. But just so you know, employee compensation and related accounts for $11.4 million in United, or 47%. Utilities and telephone account for 19%, or $4.7 million. Insurance accounts for $4.1 million, and that includes property insurance, hazard insurance, liability, and those kinds of things. Outside services is $1.5 million, and that includes damage restoration, also fumigation, and asbestos cleanup. The net allocations to mutual is $1.2 million, and that's from your ancillary departments like vehicle maintenance and HR that allocates costs to the different work centers. Materials and supplies is about $800,000. It's comprised of programs within MNC and landscape. You have legal fees at 1% or $347,000. On the next slide here, it's...
Can we have question on this slide?
Sure, but we're going to be going through each of those individually here, so they'll likely be answered here, if I may.
Yes, you pointed out on the previous slide, employee compensation.
Which I'm about to talk about right now.
Yeah. Can you give us how much of this compensation goes to the workers and how much goes to 10 or 20 VMS directors?
Great, yes, and let me address that right now. So, talking about employee compensation here, you can see on your screen the several years of actuals and the 2 years worth of the plan. And employee compensation increased $479,000. And let me break that down for you in two ways. The first is I'm going to tell you where you can see that $479,000. And $289,000 of those dollars come from the added positions that we just talked about. $289,000 specifically comes from M&C, from maintenance and construction, and that has to do with the mix of employees. So I described how you're going to be reducing some of the reserve employee headcount, but you're going to be increasing some operating employee headcount. For example, you're getting that deputy director. You're going to be getting several maintenance coordinators. You're going to be getting a new inspector position. And all of that amounts to $289,000 inside that MSC department. Additionally, landscape services increased $82,000 due to an added spray technician, increased labor hours for irrigation system checks, and of course, contracted union wage adjustments. In the office of the CEO, you're going to increase $60,000 due to the addition of a senior management analyst, and in general services, you're going to increase $36,000 due to the two added trade, paving aid trades to help with the gutter cleaning. But I guess a better way, or not a better way, just a different way to look at this same $479,000 is to see where is that money going. $257,000, so nearly half, or actually a little bit over half of the employee compensation increase is due to the added staffing that we just described. Additionally, $94,000 of this has to do with the 2.5% non-union wage increase. $75,000 has to do with the 2% union wage increase, and that describes how we get to that $479,000. So it's really additional staffing, the 2.5% non-union, and the 2% union wages on that $479,000.
Point of order. You said that the numbers you talked about are not on the screen. Where are the numbers on our handouts?
The total is on your screen, and I'm describing how we get to those numbers.
I'm totally lost at this point. I have no clue what you're talking about, because the numbers, I just don't see the numbers. I'm scrolling back and forth trying to find the numbers.
Correct.
This is not a very good presentation. That you come up with a totally different one, and we share the details. You come up with some kind of summary. So I'm lost here. Everybody else know where we are.
All of the numbers that we talk about are aggregate numbers. They're all summary numbers that have a lot of.
Can you describe it in our handouts rather than in your PowerPoint display? Because I have no clue what you're talking about.
The numbers that you see on your screen are found on agenda item 9A, page 8 of 27.
8 of 27.
Moving on to expenses related to compensation, you see an increase there of $262,000. And this has to do with union medical. And the contracted rate, just so you know, for the union, the contracted medical increase there is 4%. Similarly, for non-union, the increase there is, there's also an increase for both union medical, and just to give you an idea, that's $81,000 in union medical and $77,000 in non-union medical that is reflected therein. There's also employer taxes and workers' compensation, and that has to do with higher wages. Higher wages lead to higher taxes. And there's also an increase for union retirements. And just so you know, the union retirement contracted rate is about 11.8%. So there's quite a difference there. And that's how we get to the $262,000 in expenses related to compensation. And the last item on this particular slide is materials and supplies. Materials and supplies actually decreased by $37,000, and that has to do with reductions to material costs in landscaping, having to do with using less fertilizers for turf maintenance. Next slide, please.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
We should have two columns here. One is increases due to external forces like unions, etc., and one due to internal forces like the fees that we pay for various managers and directors. Otherwise, it's incomprehensible what we are voting for. So that's my comment. I think we should revise this. Thank you.
Moving on to utilities here. You can see the different utilities here on your screen. Electricity increased 11%. Electricity increased $11,000 year over year, and that has to do with anticipated rate increases of 8.3%, and that's based off of the last 2 years. Electricity rates are continually revised, and they do several iterations of changes throughout the year. Year over year, historically speaking, we've seen an increase of 8.3%, resulting in an $11,000 increase to your assessment. Sewer increases by $58,000, and that has to do with the rates that they just came out with. El Toro Water District just came out with new rates on July 1st, and they charge capital, and they also charge operating different rate increases. Combined, they are 5.1% as far as the rate increases are concerned. And again, this is a number that's put out by El Toro Water District. The end result is that you have to pay $58,000, or we project that you'll pay $58,000 more in 2022 than you did in 2021 in sewer. Water, the story gets even grimmer there. The increase there is $210,000. Again, we applied the new rate increases that were just published, or that were just started July 1st, so just a couple weeks ago. And the increases are about 3.6%. As you know, they use a different tier system, but on average, United pays, or is anticipated to pay about 3.6% more as far as those rates are concerned. So we've taken 5 years worth of history, applied the new rate, and the total result here for water is a $210,000 increase. Trash also has some bad news for us. There's litigation in store right now. The Senate Bill 1383 requires trash providers to handle recycling differently. They're going to need different containers and have to process it in a different way. The end result is that they're going to pass out their costs to their consumers. The existing company is currently in negotiations with the city to renew their franchise agreement, but the city has reached out to us and suggested that we increase our budget assumption to a 20% increase in rates. So what you see on your screen is that increase. It's a $75,000 increase for trash. A telephone, there really wasn't much of a change. It's pretty small there, so just $1,000 for that. If I can have the next slide, please. Some of these other operating expenses you can see along the right-hand side here, there isn't much change going through. I'll still go over them. Legal fees here, this is a contingency budget, and it varies. The small change that you see here is an effort to use our professional and legal fees as less as possible. So it's trending in a downward slope, so we decreased some of the budget there. Professional fees increased by $5,000.
Everybody.
I apologize.
But just do a mic check.
Can everyone hear me okay? Hello?
Yeah,
I can hear you, Jose.
we can
Okay,
hear you.
thank you.
All right, sorry, we just had like 5. I apologize, everybody, we just had a couple of notes in the chat box and raised hands that there was an audio issue, we're just checking on it. Sorry.
Thank you. I will try to enunciate.
I have my hand up.
Sue, would you like to wait until the conclusion of expenses, or would you like to take questions now?
Let's wait till the conclusion, please.
I thought we were doing it page by page.
I think we're doing it category by category, so at the end of expenses, I won't go into another category without taking your questions first.
Let's go ahead and finish up this expenses.
Well,
Right.
I got some questions on legal fees and professional fees.
Okay. We'll address those here at the end of expenses. Professional fees increased by $5,000. Just so you know, that $5,000 budget is for manor alterations for consulting fees specific to United Mutual. In here in professional fees, we have $48,000 in audit. We have also $60,000 for United specific consultations. The equipment increased a little bit by $3,000 due to carpentry services. They took a look at their actuals and they was trending upwards, so that's how we came up with that $8,000 budget there. Outside services, there's a total increase of $30,000, and let me first describe what's in outside services. That has to do with damage restoration. The cleanup portion of damage restoration, as you know, this used to be accounted for differently, but going forward, we're taking, when there is a damage issue, a moisture intrusion issue, we come in and we clean it up using funds from operating. And then when we get to the root problem, to fix any pipes or anything like that, then we use the reserve funds to make those changes. So the cleanup portion, $800,000, is included in this outside service line. In addition to that, there's $173,000 for fumigation in here. And the reason that there is an increase from last year to this year is that outside services includes $90,000 for asbestos cleanup that was previously unbudgeted. We do have a little bit of savings in this area having to do with general services because we're taking gutter cleaning in-house. So all that outside service that we're used to pay to the gutter service provider now is done by in-house staff, or I should say the lower buildings, the stuff that's easier for staff to get to, and we still let the outside contractor get to some of those taller buildings on those gutters. Repairs and maintenance decreased by $2,000, having to do with lower anticipated color copies. That's where that budget is. And on the next slide here is other operating. Other operating increased $7,000, and major categories in there have to do with uniforms, postage, and the increase is due to the uniforms expense coming in a little bit higher than the previous year. Income taxes are no change for us. We don't budget for any income taxes. Property and sales tax, you can see here, this line is zero, and not that it's zero, it's just that we're only going over the operating budget right now. And as you know, you have recently approved a new account to be added for your property and sales tax. So we'll talk about that in a few slides. Property insurance increased $198,000, and that's just due to the continued hardening of the market resulting from catastrophic losses. Just so you know, this does include a shared limit of $225 million that's shared between United and GRF, and the assessment for this particular line does vary by manner. Insurance increases $112,000 due to increases anticipated for hazard and liability insurance, and increases to the DNOs just because of the increased rates. And the next slide here is the last portion of expenses. And this first line is the net allocations to mutuals, and this is the result of intercompany or interdepartmental allocations, and that primarily has to do with vehicle maintenance and plumbing and electrical services related. And uncollectible accounts, we have that budget having to do with recent experience, and gain and loss, there is no change there. So overall, the operating expenditures, you can see on the screen, decreased by $10 million. But again, that has to do with moving the property tax. Once we account for moving the property taxes, expenses increased by $1.4 million, primarily again due to employee compensation, to utilities, and to insurances. So that is the conclusion of the expense portion, and I'll be glad to take some questions.
Okay, in terms of hands raised, let's go Manny, Andre, and then Dick Rader, and then anyone else that has their hand raised, feel free to raise it.
Okay, thank you, Chris. I'd like to go back to the chart that started with legal fees.
Jose, which slide is it?
Keep going. All right, let's talk about that one that you just had up on employees. Something that didn't get pointed out back here. Okay, 772. That was PCM managed the community here. PCM came into the. VMS came into the operation here in the beginning of 2016, and if you will see, they cut a bunch of employees there. So the employees have risen since that point. I just want to make that clear. They did this going all the way back to PCM to make it look like there was a big drop in employment. That's not correct. There's been an increase since VMS took over. Look at 2016 and then that graph. Okay, total legal on the expenses, please.
Slide 17, please.
Thank you. Okay, first of all, if you look at 2020 and you see actual, that's $268,000. And there was a substantial jump in those fees for 2021. And they're continuing that big increase. We have worked very hard, including Sue Margolis pushing on this, to keep our legal expenses down. And I think we're going to find out that for 2021, we've done the same thing. The only reason these legal expenses have stayed high is because we're stocked with legal fees now that apply to VMS operations. Somebody has to pay for them. Obviously, VMS doesn't pay for them. We do. And that's going to be a bigger portion of these expenses than what our own mutual attorney is costing us. Okay, so I want to point that out. The other thing I want to point out is that in 2021, I am looking at the June 30th, 21 financial statements. And for legal fees, it shows you how the budget for that is $349,985, $350,000. Through June 30th, 2021, our actual legal, even including those exorbitant amounts for VMS, are only $84,000 versus $174,000. So again, we're not going to be anywhere near that 350 by the end of the year. So that 347 is an area that could easily be cut. Same thing with professional fees. Look there, the actual is 78,000. They've pumped that up to 121,000 now. If you look at the June 30th financial statement 2001, here again, the budget is $55. Okay, and that's just consulting fees out of the total professional fees of $115,000. Okay, the consulting fees through June 30th only $5,000 out of a budget of $28,000. So again, here's some areas that definitely could be reduced for a budget. I don't know what they're working on. This is what's actual for 2020, and the same pattern is continuing in 2021. So I don't know how they could try to justify these huge increases. Outside services. You look at outside services, that the big item there, out of $9,228,000. So, okay, what am I looking at here? Oh, that's the collection. Where do you have that outside service collection? Because I see that a budget of $9 million, and a lot of that is reserve expenditures. But again, I look at current financials as well as the prior years. The budget through June 30th is $1 million. We've only spent $1 million. So far we've saved $3 million in the current year. So again, there are areas that could be looked into very easily. Okay. So now we've gone through the rest of this. I'm going to make a proposal. I'd like to make a motion that we instruct BMS to go back through this budget and come up with $10 decrease to the proposed assessments. $10 per month per banner decrease. They're still going to have an increase over the prior year, over $1 million in the budget. So I'm not expecting any cut down. I'm just saying there are areas here where that need to be looked at. And so I'm saying that's my motion. Okay, do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, so let's have a vote.
All right.
Vote in favor of Manny's proposal.
I'm here. Okay, we'll start down the list here. Andre, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Daniel?
Yes.
Reza?
Yes.
Cash?
Yes.
Carl?
I have no comment right now because I'm not going to be on the board next year, and whatever happens next year where we don't have enough money, there'll be a special assessment. I don't know if I should vote on this because at this particular point in time, I will not be on the board next year. So I'm going to abstain at this particular.
Elsie?
We've been over these and over these and over these, and that's what version 1, 2, and 3 are for. And I think this is a ridiculous motion, and I vote no.
Cash, have I got, people keep, all right.
You
Netta?
got 4 yes votes so far.
I have 4 yes votes, 1 abstention. I've got it.
4.
I'm counting it. I'm trying to figure out who I haven't asked for vote. Cash, have I asked you for a vote?
Yes. My vote is yes.
Okay. Netta?
Yes, Sue.
Diane?
Yes.
And I'll abstain because I will be not on the board, and we'll see what happens. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, if we do this, we can stop the meeting right now and on this subject and come back in. We need to give them time to do it when.
Fine. We might want to have a special meeting before.
Yeah, we have to have another special meeting before this. Jose, what could we be done?
That's obviously quite a bit of money. It's $750,000 or so. So it's going to take staff a little while to get those together.
We need to understand what services are going to be like if they go with the $750 decrease.
Excuse me, Sue. It's a $750,000, $10 per month per manor.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. $750,000.
Well, I just showed you right here. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars right here, and just these things.
I hear you, but we need to understand what the effect.
To clarify, we're looking for $758,000 out of operating. Some of what you described was out of reserve. So to get $758,000 out of this operating is going to take quite a bit of work. So I'll have to get back to you as far as data is concerned, but as soon as the meeting's over.
Manuel, do you want it all out of operating, or are you taking some out of reserve?
As little as possible on a
Operating
reserve, I
fund.
might accept $2 from reserves, 8 from operations.
Okay. Jose, you've got your marching orders. Is that, I know it's going to be very difficult, and it's a matter that we're going to have to eliminate some positions and things like that the other boards all want as well, right?
Sue, this is Jeff. What we'll do is we'll go back now and using the parameters that were just indicated, we will go back and pull together and provide you with recommendations based on what was stated by the board in their motion.
Okay, yeah, all right. I don't understand why we have to do this, but that's why we didn't do this with the second version, Manuel. This business of coming in at the last minute.
I tried. I sent out, wait a second. I sent out an analysis, and the reason they didn't act on it was because they didn't get any direction from the board. Exactly. Go back and look. Ask Jose. That's what they said. Okay, so now we gave him direction.
Okay. All right.
I thought we gave him direction.
All right. Are there any further questions about expenditures, or shall we move on?
Well, I don't think we even need to bother to move on. You've got your marching orders. There's nothing else to be looked at, right? Correct? Anybody have anything that they want to look at besides we have to go to the closed meeting? Is there anything else?
Well, I had a question.
Sure, go ahead, Diane.
You know, on the analysis of, the major items that were in dispute and the maintenance and construction, why is it that those costs were switched out from reserve to operating? I just want to be clear on why the switch.
Okay, the reason why was we went to a 15-year paint, so we got rid of painters who were in reserve.
Okay.
And then we hired a facilities manager, a new manager for M&C, and some other people that are going to be in operating instead of, they aren't going to be in the reserve part.
And they were hired already. It's not just part of the budget for the future. It's they're employees, right?
They're employees.
Already. Okay. All right. That was my question.
Sue, on that, I would like to add on that for Diane. Diane, we also changed how we were allocating costs relative to damage restoration, and that's in that outside services number. Mm-hmm. And so there's a different calculation as to what could be charged against the reserves and what had to be charged in operating. So in the past, there was a different allocation, and that's what caused part of the increase there too.
Okay.
I see.
Dick Rader, go ahead, and then we'll adjourn this meeting and open up a closed meeting. Yes, Dick.
Sue, I have one important point to make on this schedule.
Hello?
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, Dick, and then we'll let you speak, Manuel.
How about me? I want to speak too.
Okay. Dick, please go.
Thank you. I'm disappointed that a vote was taken before discussion occurred. That, I think, should have happened. Point one. Point two, if I understand Manny's proposal, he said $10 per man or per month. That means that essentially our HOA fee, the United fee, will stay the same as last year. GRF goes up, but we don't have control over that. Is that correct? That's question one. And you asked Manny, Sue, how he wanted to apportion the $10, and he told you what he thought, but that was a committee vote. Why doesn't the committee vote on the proposal? It's incomplete right now.
Okay, I hear you. We will, okay, is there some more discussion on this before I move on, and we'll have to vote on how we want it apportioned?
Sue, are you going to recognize me?
Yes, I'm going to recognize you, but there was someone
I have an answer for Dick.
Okay, go ahead, Manny.
Okay. First of all, I want everybody to look at page 8 of 27 on agenda item 9A. And they made a presentation that I disagree with, because under Davis Sterling, under reporting processes that we've always used in our business plan book, there are only two types of operations. There's the operating expenditures and income and so on, and there's reserves. There's nothing called fund contributions. So in this latest presentation, they changed it only because they had heard some people complain about not accumulating the funds for property taxes. Property taxes have nothing to do with reserves. It's an operating expense. So I disagree with the president. Those property taxes should be moved back up into expenses, and this should be called reserve funds, and then it should have just the two, contingency and regular reserve. Okay, so that's an important point. That needs to be changed.
Not a reserve.
Now, as far, I'm sorry, this is Davis Sterling. This is Davis Sterling. You have reserves and you have operating. You don't have funds. Okay?
Let him answer, Manuel.
Well, I'm not finished yet. Okay, back to Dick's question. Yeah, I agree. Let's put it back to the committee as to what the split should be. You asked me a question, I answered it. Yeah, let's vote. My proposal has passed. Now it's a matter of making a decision on what the committee thinks the split should be. Okay? Those are my two answers.
Thank you. Jose, you want to answer his first part, please?
Yeah, as far as fund contributions are concerned, I'd just point out that contingency funds are not reserve funds. And so since there is a distinction there, we just had a category that talked about several different other funds that you have in addition to your operating.
Okay, thank you. And I don't think it's confusing at all. Can you
It's not a matter of confusing, Stu. It needs to go back. It needs to go back on.
Stop. Please put the screen up that has faces instead of numbers, and so I can see everybody, so I can see whose hands are up. Okay. We're going to go for discussion on whether we should, okay, I'm going to take the hands that are up, and Debbie, Diane, go ahead.
No, I didn't. I'm sorry. I didn't lower my hand. I don't have a question.
Thank you. Andre?
Yes, there's a question about cutting costs here. Okay, I take, for example, Office of the CEO. 2021 plan is 1706 people. 2022 plan is 18.50. The headcount difference is 1.44. And the budget increase is $50,400 due to the addition of a senior management analyst. Okay. Now, my question is, we don't just add, because we need somebody, we just add a cost on it. There got to be some kind of benefit. If we just keep on adding people with no benefit, then let's stop adding people. Just get rid of all those people that are not productive. Something has to be benefited to us. Some improvements. This senior management analyst, what does he do? What does he benefit our company, our organization?
Okay, Andre, we've been over this many times. Let's get the answer. I'm tired of hearing you wanting cost analysis. Go ahead and answer it, please. Was that Jeff or Steve?
That was me.
Go ahead. Andre, we're done. You're done.
Andre, and to the board. The United Board has requested several times that we add additional operational auditing elements to our operation. I've indicated that I need an additional staff person, a senior analyst, to do that work. That is what this position is for. If you desire not to have that additional auditing work done, you could eliminate this position. The savings will hopefully come from improvements in our operation from these internal operation auditing process. But there is no savings before the person gets here because the person can't do the work if they're not here. So again, this is to add an additional staff to do that auditing work internal management auditing work that was requested by the United Board. It has been a request, part of the management agreement discussions, part of the budget discussions. It has been an ongoing discussion for a year. We said we would put the staffing position in the 2022 budget, and that is what that position is for.
So what's the benefit? How much money can we save from this additional?
All right, Andre, he has explained to you until the
I need a
person is
number.
on board. We can't. Please move on. Raise a,
That's
take
where
your
the
hand down.
If we don't have a saving, just add more people, add more money, then we'll totally
Will
waste.
you please mute Andre? We've heard this battle 7 times.
Yes,
Reza.
we need to figure out what the.
May I speak now?
Yes, please, Reza.
I have a question to Jeff. It's not about this people about auditing. It's about people you're increasing in MNC. Can you give us a justification why we need more managers or directors in MNC, and how much is the pay for them? Because we have, in my opinion, we have had enough managers and directors in MNC, and they didn't do a good job. Now we are increasing this, and we have to pay for my assessment for these. What's the justification? If you can give us a justification, I'll appreciate it. Thank you.
I'd be glad to, Reza. There's 2 elements to your question. I'll start with the deputy director for MNC. Over a year, we've had discussions by numerous members of boards from both United, Third, GRF, that they needed additional assistance in handling committee meetings, staffing up committee meetings, and in the need for additional response to board members' requests at those committee meetings. That's a staffing level. And then along with that deputy director would be the idea that we were looking at splitting up MNC, some of the divisions of MNC, so that we would be more efficient in our operations. So that's why the deputy director position. The other 4 positions that were critical to being added are operational people in manor alterations. If you know, our manor alterations activity has increased dramatically by people wanting to do alterations, asbestos issues that we didn't have in previous years. And so the staffing level and the need to be responsive. If you recall, prior to COVID, we were getting into more than 60-day delays with regards to applications that were going through manor alterations. So what we have done is moved, because we were reduced the staffing because of the painting operation, we were able to recommend in this budget that we'd add 4 positions in manor alterations. These are operation specialists that process the residents' requests through manor alterations. We also added an inspector for resales because our resales have gone up significantly. So those are efficiency positions to address backlog issues that we've had in processing applications. Again, the whole value here is to create a backlog that is much more reduced. Go back to the position where when we didn't have as many applications, when we didn't have the activity, we were turning around things in 2 weeks, and the resale process was getting concluded in a manner that was in 30 days. We're now at that because we've added those positions. If we eliminate those positions from the budget, you're going to go back to a very, very bare bones manor alterations. And unfortunately, I'm going to tell you that you're going to get way behind with regards to manor alterations applications and the processing time to do that, which will impact resales as well. So that's why we made those adjustments in our budget and staffing.
Yeah, Jeff, I have a question. I was today in administration building. There was a notice on the board that manor alteration is closed.
Walk in.
We've had the same people previous to COVID doing the same job.
Not true.
Now they are closed. They're not doing the same job.
Not true.
What is happening? Manual Alteration has been the worst department in BMS, and still they cannot cope with it.
Could you let him answer your question, please?
I will if you let me.
Bullshit.
Okay, go ahead, Jeff, please.
So in Reza, in manor alterations, the reason it's closed right now is we've had a COVID.
The person who said bullshit has to be thrown out of the board.
You know what? I apologize, Reza, and that was me. It was Eileen as Director of Communications. May I just share this, please?
Eileen,
for a moment.
You said this?
The disrespect for each other's opinions. It's very obvious that people here don't agree.
I didn't disrespect. I was asking you a question.
Reza?
Point of order. We need to get back to the issues here. We're talking about.
I agree.
Okay?
Let's let Jeff answer this question.
Thank you.
Point of order.
And I apologize.
Let me finish.
Thank you, everybody. Let's go. Jeff, go ahead.
So with regards to manor alterations, I want to answer Reza's first question. Reza, the reason it's closed right now is because we had a COVID incident, and we needed to close it to ensure the safety of our employees as required by OSHA.
COVID is finished, but you're still not serving.
That's not true, Reza. You can go online. You can call on the telephone.
Yeah, but online, yes. But on the board,
do you want to go in and get COVID? Let's stop. They had
Reza,
a COVID issue.
Reza, if you have a specific issue, you come into my office. I'll guarantee you that manor alterations.
I have been to your office.
Okay, moving on. Manuel, you're next.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to speak about this internal auditor. First point is, yes, we talked about that as far as the management agreement. We never came up with a management agreement. We're still operating under the original, because we want our own separate agreement for you. Point one. Point two, the only time this internal audit function came up from the board was in the first vice president's meetings. And if you'll recall at the meeting, Sue was in favor of hiring a person that's a member here in the village to do some of that. And I was not in favor of it. I was in favor of having some kind of volunteer program.
We're not discussing
it. Please let me finish. It never arose again until this budget, when it got introduced in there. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Remove it. We don't need it. I'm not confident that whoever you get will do any kind of a benefit for us. I mean, I deal with all this stuff all the time, and I see holes. MNC,
Manuel, it was in our management agreement. Carl and a number of us voted for it.
It's not in the existing management.
A number of us voted for it in the management agreement. This discussion is done. I'm going to now go for a vote of how we want.
It's not in the current
discussion is done. We're not getting any value out of this discussion.
Okay.
We're going to now go for a vote.
The question I have is, let me speak. The question I
am tired of you asking how much money we're going to save. We have no idea.
Isn't that our fiduciary responsibility?
Yes.
You deny our fiduciary responsibility?
Please mute everybody. Thank you.
So
we now have to vote.
You don't care. You're leaving, you don't care. But
this meeting is out of hand. There is no answers to your questions. So we need to figure out where we want this money taken out of. And before we can do that, I'd like Jeff to let us know what he thinks we should do. Thank you. Jeff, go ahead. Please unmute yourself.
Okay. Thank you. If everybody can hear me. So we have direction from the board to find $10 in reductions. So we will go do that as the board has directed us to do. There's clearly some division between the board as to whether or not you want to have a management analyst in the CEO's office. Again, if we're not going to do internal management audits, and you don't want those done, then you don't need that position. I would agree. I'm not going to put a position in there that is not going to provide a service for you. That's exactly what that position was for. If you don't want that service, you don't have to have that service. And that's as simple as that. With regards to the $10, I heard what was suggested by Mr. Armendariz about looking at $8 in the operating fund and $2 in the reserves. We'll look at all of that and come up with a recommendation on where to make those cuts.
Okay. Is there anybody that has a different split that they want besides 8 and 2? If you do, Andre, put your hand down, please. Is there anybody that wants a different split? Elsie.
I just want to go on record that I think we've tinkered. I know what Manuel's opinion is on our reserves, but as far as I'm concerned, these continual tinkering is stealing from our. Maybe not stealing is the harsh word, although he uses it plenty, but it's an absolutely irresponsible diminishing of our reserves, which are there for projects that we're still going to perform, number one. And number two, if the worst happens and we need those reserves for something else, they're there. It's our savings account. And it's only $1 here, $10 there, $5 there per man or per month, which represents $75,000 a year for every dollar. So I just want to go on record. I don't approve of anything that diminishes our reserves anymore. Thank you.
Hey, Carl?
I could see where the legal fees they projected legal fees to go up to some value, and maybe they won't. So that's true. Maybe we can cut back on legal fees and what have you. But any of these specific operating issues with regard to the fact that they've identified the fact that there was increases in pay that were required based on the $15 an hour, the 2.5% raise, and the medical costs, what have you, all of that's got to come from someplace. So at this particular point in time, I believe that at the end of the day, in 2022, if we do come up short, they will have to come up with a special assessment. And that board will be addressing that. It won't be me. At this particular point in time, I don't know if we should have cutbacks in the legal and the various other areas where Manny had said that we would need to have, okay? But as far as the pay for the various different people, it's a given. That's what you have to do. You got that many people, you got to increase their pay by X amount of dollars. Last thing, with regard to the auditing, I'm the one that's been pushing auditing from the time that I first got on the board. I work for an engineering company and an architect engineering company, and basically right now, in order for us to make sure that our departments were working correctly, we did internal audits every single year because that told us where we had shortcomings. The cost for that is, and the payback for that is the fact that you have a more efficient organization and you have people that are actually doing their job better and they know their job better. And that's what it is. It's not a monetary cost whereby, it's going to cost you $10 and you're going to get $20 back. It's the actual operation. And I would never take away an auditor at this particular point in time because I've been fighting for this auditor. And the other question I have is, we're just one entity here. GRF and Third have not said that they want to cut this position, these positions, or whatever they are. Anything to do with the people that are working for VMS goes across 3 boards. And right now, if the others don't want to do it, then I don't know what to tell you. But it was somebody else's problem next year, because at this particular point in time, I find myself at a loss for words at this point with this board, because I'm just disgusted.
Thank you. I am also.
May I?
I'm happy you're leaving.
May I? Okay.
Thank you. Raisa, that is uncalled. Raisa, that was uncalled for. Please stop this nonsense. We are not attacking each other.
Okay.
Yes, but he's attacking people.
May I?
With certain...
Raisa, you were not called on. Thank you. Andre, you've got 1 minute.
I think we have a big misunderstanding the difference between making improvements and cut costs, cut staff. We want to reduce assessment by making improvements. So we don't mind adding more people if each $50,000 can result in $100,000 improvement, reduction on assessment. We need improvements. That's what we're looking for. This senior management analyst, the purpose is to make improvements, not just one more body. Okay? If you look at all these head counts, all those counts, we're looking for reduction on improvement on the, and these are 6.33 people that I counted are making improvements. If each one can make improvement to save $100,000 together with the whole group and help others to improve each one. Okay, that's $100,000. That's $600. That's almost $1 million. That's about $13 per man per month. That's what we are asking. We are not asking for cut staff. We are not. Our cut cost is to make improvement and reduce the cost of doing business, running business. Like I said, like Costco, they reduce the cost to run a better business. That's what we're looking for.
Sue, point of order. I think we're concluded with this. Please.
Okay, Elsie's got one comment, and then we're going to take a vote if 8-2 was the way we wanted to go. I didn't get any different numbers.
I thought VMS was going to come up with a recommendation, and we would go with a decision at that point.
Okay, Elsie and Dick Rader have had their hands up. Let's just hear them out, and then we'll go to the closed session. Elsie?
I hope this is still being broadcast, is it?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. I want everybody to see this.
Dick?
All right.
There are two things going on in this meeting. One is a budget meeting, but there were people bringing up they want efficiencies. Efficiencies aren't part of a budget meeting. You should have spent, quiet dog, you should have spent all year in the committee meetings trying to work with the...
Oops. We lost Dick.
Sorry, Dick.
Point of order.
Not done yet. Stop interrupting. You've been doing it all meeting. Out of order.
Go ahead, Dick.
So my point, I don't know where I got cut off, but what I'm saying is that this should have been just solely on budget numbers. If you want to increase efficiencies and make suggestions, it should have happened all during the year. It is inappropriate to start talking about how we can make better efficiencies at a budget meeting. And I would say this. I want to make absolutely certain that people understand my position. My position is I want HOA fees to be as low as possible. I have to pay them too. But I don't want to see things where services have to be cut, because that's where, in the committee meetings I attend, that's where the residents get very upset. I hope, and Eileen, I hope is listening, I hope that this what happened at this committee and the ultimate result will be publicized, and it will show both sides. You can have pros and cons, but show to the community what happened and the consequences of what happens, because I believe there will be service reductions and possibly as Carl said, a special assessment. But certainly, because of budget cuts, you're going to see service reduction. That's what I think. Okay,
we're going to leave it to the finance people to take care of this, and we're going into the closed session. Please turn off the Granicus link. Juanita has asked to be in the closed session, so let's just go ahead and allow her in. Is there anybody else that...
We have to allow her in.
Reza, I don't care about what you want. Thank you.
No, I know you don't, but why do we have to allow her in?
Because she is our VMS representative. Thank you. She is legally allowed into meetings. All right. Jeff, you want to go ahead? Chris,
are we good on?
1 second of making sure everything's locked down.
Okay.